Hello, ActorSage here on the Sage channel, and today we are here to do an extremely close look at the wonderful Aegis Sabre. This ship is a rather beautiful combat ship that, well, it's pretty much my favorite. For a while I thought the Vanguard was going to be my favorite, but, well, between the concept phase and the actual game implementation, the Vanguard turned into, well, a rather ugly turd. But this ship, I didn't think I'd like it too much when I first saw it. It just looked like a sort of space jet, something I'm not too keen on. But when it actually released, I found that, well, it is kind of gosh darn gorgeous. And I actually used what you call an LTI token, a smaller, cheaper ship with a lifetime insurance, and I converted it up to this. So this is actually one of those rare ships where I didn't just buy it to do a video on it. I plan to actually keep this thing because I love it. It has 4 pretty hefty weapons on it. You can see we have 2, I believe it is size, yep, 3 guns right there, and then right there on either wing, and then it has 2 size 2 weapons right here, which I usually remove these and go ahead and just affix non-gimbaled size 3s to these, because these do have a gimbal on them right now. But anyway, as for the extremely close look, where we usually look at the artistic aspects of this, I was originally going to actually do a video today on the Misk Reliant, because it's a surprisingly sexy little ship. But I decided, since this ship is on sale right now with a few others due to Citizen Con, and they have a bunch of, well, pretty nifty stuff out there you can take a look at, I figured, why not? Let's go ahead and review this ship right now. That way you can get an idea what this awesome thing looks like. And anyway, it's been out for a while. I haven't done that. So let's get straight to it by hoppity-dopping over to the front. And let's actually go over to this side, which has a little bit more light on it so we can see the details here. It's quite an interesting design, similar to some other Aegis ships. Well, mainly the Vanguard. It sort of has this hefty nose cone stuck to it, and I actually found the key for this. I can bring back our trusty mouse so I don't have to wave my whole head around. I can actually point out details. So you can see it has this whole nose cone section here, which is sort of acts like a clamp to hold it on the front, and it's quite interesting. It has the center point right here chopped away, and as per usual on most Star Citizen things, it's even got nice little beveled edges on, well, every single edge has been beveled pretty much. I think, yes, every single one. And it's quite the interesting thing, as I mentioned, the straight cut in here with the hard angle leading up. But if you follow this, it comes down here, has a slight angle change, comes back up, and then it has softer angles right here. Sort of this area here where then it flanges outwards, actually reaches out towards our camera right here. Some weird polygonness here, but I guess that's actually alright. And a little tiny wing that sort of flattens out here, and this wing sort of jets out of the surface coming out here. Pretty nifty, actually. Unfortunately, I can't move my camera and have the mouse moving at the same time. As for the rest of the cap, you'll also notice it has a secondary layer here, this sort of secondary panel. Let's go ahead and disactivate our mouse right now and move over so we can get a slightly better view of it. There we go. I love that. Such an interesting shape. And it's such a simple thing, too. But you'll be able to see that it also has a nice little wing stuck out at it. And it's interesting what they did with this wing is because instead of having this line here where it sort of arches a little tiny bit up, but not a lot, if it was like a proper arch up and arch back down, this line right here, if it arched all the way up and came back down, it would be hideous because it would give it like sort of a plump nose. Instead, it ever so slightly seems to bulge upwards before going back to a straight line. And this wing doesn't follow that line, which I actually like a lot. It could look nice if it followed, but it would have to be a different shape of a wing. If it just followed it, it would probably have to be smaller and have a slight cut in, but this is pretty much just a rectangular piece of metal here, and because it's at a different angle, it's actually kind of alright, because you can see from the front there, it creates a nice little triangle. Oopsie, didn't mean to jump there, I just meant to do Alt and slash. A nice little triangle right here. You can see a little bit better on this side. This little triangle right there, which I actually like an awful lot. As for the textures on this, it all is pretty damn good. You can see a little tiny bit of texture stretching here right in front of us. A little disappointing that. But up here, there's pretty much absolutely no texture stretching. It doesn't get painfully pixelated or anything like that. You can see these big, huge sort of square pixels here. I think that's just like an overlay layer that's been applied to it, and it's just not loading in properly, so we're going to ignore that. It's pretty damn nifty also the fact that they have this, it's almost like an intake right here where you have the shiny metal that bumps up and creates this. I originally thought it was like a handle, but if you look, it sort of drops inwards into the center area there, which makes me think it's just designed almost, like I said, as an intake. And you can see from the sides here, it definitely does carry on back as well, just behind it, where this top piece of metal that we were looking at a second ago, this sort of big, huge clip that goes onto the, well, main holding clip on the nose, has this nice little bump out, this sort of sheath, this thing sticking out. Interesting. Very, very interesting. And of course, they have nice little details. They cut it down right there, just above the sheath. It's all very interesting. It reminds me of a hot rod car, actually, where they have the intake sticking out of the top. You can see this drops down here, and it's sort of like it's supposed to push air into it, but this bumps out like the top of a car. It's very, very interesting. Very interesting, shocking amount of little details, and very well thought out to counterbalance each of the pieces. And it's not like they just have a straight line coming from down here up. No, this actually goes straight this way before then going up, which makes it follow this line here. It's very, very nice. I love it so very much. Simple little things like that. Anyway, let's go ahead and take a look at this wing we sort of mentioned here. What I like about this is it's not like a big proper wing. For one, it kind of is, in the way that if you follow this line here at this angle, it would go ahead and connect up to there, so we could rotate ourselves over here and see that it pretty much would line up with that other area right there. Just about. But it's got this huge cutaway right here, which makes it not an ugly, ugly, boring space wing, but actually, well, something more interesting with a cutaway, so the intake can almost pull air in, and if you were to gimbal this weapon, it could aim upwards without having to worry about bumping into anything there. Pretty nifty. Heading back to the front really quickly, we're going to lay down on the floor. Bloop. There we go. And can we turn on our flashlight in here? I don't think we can, unfortunately. But you can see there is a small amount of detail in here. It's relatively bland, but it is at the very bottom of the ship, and there's not really a landing strip right here. But you can see they did actually take the time to put this nice little cut in right here, so it isn't just a completely solid piece of boring metal or anything like that. Moving on back, we have a nice little landing light, which I love the fact that they put these on ships. They're so damn cool just to have little tiny lights. I love the texture work on it and the plasticness of it shining down on things. You can also see something I haven't pointed out too much is seams like this. They're just in the texture, but they really do add a lot to the ship to make it look like it's built out of actual physical parts. Pretty damn nifty. Heading on back to right here, you can see our landing gear with a oddly purple pipe in there. I suspect that might be a glitch. In fact, I'm 90% sure that's just a lighting glitch right now, where, yeah, something's gone wrong with that, and it's not supposed to be purple like that. Can I please just crawl under here? Thank you very much. Suddenly I'm playing a baby simulation game. And you can see that we have, once again, as per most Star Citizen ships, a mountain of detail stuck into the landing gear right here. It's pretty damn awesome. Why can't I crawl to my right? I must be like bumping part of my head on that thing there. Nope. I don't know what's going on. Right here, and I'm just snagged on. Maybe it's the light on the floor there to my right. Anyway, pretty damn nifty amount of details here. I'm going to try to scoop myself about so I can actually talk about them. Having a little bit of trouble here. Nice little caution details. Once again, we also have the pretty badass little inserts of these that look like they might actually be modeled in, but I know they're magic. They're probably just a flat surface there, but they have normal maps and a displacement map to make it look like it's got proper depth on it. Very cool. Also like the fact that they have these little bolts stuck in. Those are for sure just flat little things, but pretty nifty. A little unfortunate here around this beveled edge, where it looks like they must have made normal maps for the whole ship or something, because this looks like it sort of chops in right there on the edge, where their normal maps probably didn't quite bake out correctly. And you see the same thing here, but the model itself is actually beveled here, so even if they were to just delete the normal map, it would probably still look pretty nice and smooth around the edge. Maybe not as sharp as we would like, but it would look beveled indeed instead of just a, well, the weird indentation you end up getting with this line right there. Anyway, we also have an actually modeled in crop in right there, which actually connects out, which separates out this little caution thing, and you even, it's very hard to see in this lining, but there is a circular joint right there that leads through this sort of little bolt, so it all looks like it can move. I doubt everything moves, but Jesus Christ, it looks like they could make it move if they wanted to. We also have some pretty nifty little wires that sort of come out and over, and I love the little bumpities in these. It's a little bit uncomfortable to see how these just wiggle a little, but it's something you could imagine happening in the real world if you sort of had this, almost looks like fabric-y covering on these leading up. Nice little warning details, more bolts, a nice handle, which is always nice, and you can't count the polys on it because it's high enough. Well, not really. You can see maybe a little bit over there, but very nice. Heading up to this, we have, God, I love it, this stuff right here. because you have the little large cylindrical piece, but instead of it having some sort of cap on it that makes this huge piece that's shooting upwards, it sort of just blends gently into it and then comes up, and then this blends gently into this piece and comes up the rest of the way, as if you might see that in some more modern industrial machinery. It's very nice. And then of course this connects into what looks like a joint. It's got the actually modeled in joint section there, as well as this one down here, which is actually a two-piece, nice color breakup, nice texture work on all of that, including this. And then it leads out, bends itself up and over, and away it goes back into the ship. Oh, and I didn't mean to stand up, but I did because I was pressing their old button. Pretty nifty. And you can see that they've also, as per usual, modeled in these almost like triangle-like shapes here into the flat area here, but I think they are also on the texture. Hopefully this doesn't have the same issue I found on another ship, which was... yeah, it doesn't have it, which is where the grime on top of it looked like it was just floating. I don't think that's happening this time. Very good. Alrighty. Some more little details in here, not too much. You can see this is just like a flat texture here with the triangle things put into it. It kind of makes sense that they wouldn't have too much detail in here, because I don't think anybody's really going to be trying to stow away in here. But it is nice that they did take the time to put the detail in here of these large sliding racks, so this piston here, when it retracts, can actually slide back up and pull this whole thing up with it. Oh, Jesus, I love the shape here as well of this piece reaching upwards. And I think, dang, I was hoping it reached up a little bit farther and this was sort of like a darker piece in the middle of it, but no such luck. It is still nice though, and the fact that it reaches up at that angle before flattening out and then having a curved other side. What I mean by that is it's a half cylinder right here where it bends back around to the other side of it. Let's see, we're a little bit stuck here. There we go. There we go. Yep, and you see it bends down and then shoots back out at a different height. So from the side over here, it's really hard to tell, but it goes all the way up, flattens out, drops down, and then shoots down this way before coming down on an angle. It's nice. I love it. It's just also well thought out. You don't get random cubes or anything. It all feels like somebody spent a lot of time thinking about it. Oh my god, and look at this. I thought these went straight out, sort of like these right here, but no, look, it comes out in an angle. And they even have a nice little bevel there. The pieces of metal run into it. But look at this. They have a slight edge here where it drops down, so it's not a hard 90-degree corner right there. They even have this dropping down to prevent it from having something that would just look like a boring cube. That's so nice. And look how it bevels back up with a nice little triangle. Boop. Oh, and the beam I thought was running along the whole thing. Look, even right here you can see it does have a little drop down there as well. Very nice. Very, very, very nice. I love this stuff. So nice. I love little details like that. I often find myself with a lot of these ships wishing the whole ship was covered in detail that dense. And unfortunately it's not, but it's still a nice ship nonetheless. Landing gears are often something on these ships that have the most detail. Anyway, moving on from there, let's talk about this light again. So I already mentioned the light. It's got its own cut hidden. It's not just a flat surface there. It also has this piece of metal here that runs down, so it actually blends into the wing. Not exactly the most inspired blending ever, but it does its job. There's no bevel or anything where it looks like it's... I mean, it does... it looks like it's bending inwards a little bit to the metal, which I guess is alright. It's a shame they couldn't just put some, like, welding seam along it or something, but I guess it works. You could imagine that there's screws inside there, and you unscrew them, and this whole chassis right here pops off. Not exactly anything to say that that happens for sure. As for the weapon here to our left, it looks like this puck could actually, in a way, slide up and over to here. And I actually think it does, because I seem to remember when in the ship and you arm your weapons, the weapon usually slides up and over, sort of give you even greater aim with it. Remember how we mentioned this cutaway here? It becomes even more important if you think that the gun's going to move this way and slide up. It actually needs the cutaway for the back end of the gun, not to hit the wing bit. And of course, if this wing had gone straight across, there wouldn't be any room for the gun to go up like that. Pretty nifty. And of course, we have our half cylinder here that just bumps down on the base of it. Yeah, pretty good overall. Once again, we're getting some gigantic pixelation right there, but you can see the under texture is fine, so again, it's leading me to believe it's some sort of overlaid texture. I don't think it's intentional because it doesn't particularly look good. It's definitely a glitch. As for the intake right here that we've gotten to, it's got a I don't know, it's a nice design, but at the same time, it doesn't feel fully pulled off. Got the flat top and curve over Jindal comes down and then comes down the rest of the way because it's at an angle and straight down pretty much. It feels a little bit wobbly here is what I'm getting at, where the mesh doesn't feel so sharp and accurate and perfect. I know it's an Aegis ship, so it's supposed to have more of a flow, but I do like things to be very cut and always seem intentional. And this sometimes feels a bit blobby, which is Aegis Vanguard, as I've mentioned before. That's that whole ship's front end. It's just blobby, 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 horrible. Anyway, let's go ahead, move a little bit closer, since it's probably a little bit hard to tell what I'm talking about from that distance. There we go. And get a bit closer, and you see right here we have a pinch where this sort of feels like it's leaning out. I think the mesh is actually going here and going up relatively fine, but you get this sort of pinch. The bottom here, you can see this whole shiny metal here that runs along the side. You see it pretty clearly right here is the fact that it's got a flat front to it. The lip on it is sort of flat right here. But when it gets down to here, suddenly it looks like that lip bends inward instead of remaining flat with all the rest of it, which is really rather unfortunate. Yeah, and you can sort of see it from here too. This also doesn't look particularly like it was thought out because it feels like it's just stretched back there, like somebody just grabbed some vertices, like this did go straight down, grabbed the verts, and just dragged them backwards, making this sort of ugly bend inwards, which I really don't like one bit. But from a distance of like here, okay, you can still see it, and I really am not keen on it. But from the front, you really don't notice it, and from the top and bottom, you don't notice it either. Yeah, not the happiest with it. I like the idea of the angle and then straight down, but the bottom here just gets all blobby and does not feel thought out whatsoever. This really, I feel, should go straight at an angle, so goes one angle and then goes maybe a different angle, but not a curve. Yuck. Anyway, moving on from there. We have our cut in here. Once again, all the edges are beveled like this here. It's not just a hard one line. There's two edges right there and two edges right there, all smooth. What in the hell is this? You see this? We've got this line right here. Forgive the flashing, the floor does blink in this area, but we got this odd line right here, and this odd line right here, as well as a lot of texture stretching right along here. Not ideal, but yeah, that's not ideal at all. I don't know what's going on. Hopefully they'll fix that. I also got some serious texture stretching here, but I think that might be alright. The idea it's like metal bent around the edge. The only problem is when you get grime, it doesn't necessarily look like the grime should be bent around it. And that is real bad over there. That's just horrific. Geometry-wise, this is alright. It gets a little low poly, but I'd say maybe add one more edge right here just to pop that out so you don't get that hard cut, because I'm not sure that hard cut feels intentional. Maybe it is, maybe, I don't know, maybe it is alright like that, because then it's calling out to its friend over there like, hey, we were once connected in an alternate dimension. Maybe make this hard cut a little bit more noticeable, like from right here to right here is what I would say on that. Moving on further, we have some nice panel work in here. I believe it's all done in the texture like this here, but it does look awesome. I love the lines of it, the way they flow. We got one of our maneuvering vents right here, very well modeled. I love all these little tiny, I almost want to call them teeth, but all these tiny little, oh my god, look at that blue. It's like a portal eye. One of the computer AI cores from Portal. But I love all these little teeth right here and the fact that they're actually modeled in. It's fantastic. The little detail that's stuck in right here. It's just a decal, I believe, to give a sense of depth, but it looks fantastic. And of course, this whole thing is modeled into the ship here because it will rotate when you're flying about. Pretty nifty. Moving on to the large intake here for our main thruster. And no, we don't want to remove our cooler. We don't necessarily have too many other components in Star Citizen yet to switch everything out, so there's no point in me min-maxing it too much or anything silly like that. You know what just hit me? We could have done over here is clicked on this. If the interaction prompt will work. Maybe we have to stand up and move away from it sometimes. Yep, there we go. We could have just gone ahead and said remove. There we go. That way we could have seen the puck insertion point, which is just a black bit of mesh there. And you can see the polys very clearly, but I'm assuming most of the time you're going to have a gun mounted there, so that's not too bad. A little bit warpy there, but overall not too bad, I don't think. I'd personally prefer it to be higher, but it's not necessarily one of these ships here where you're going to be walking up to it every 2 seconds because you're going to be landing and fiddling with stuff and moving cargo about. Don't know. Again, Argo, best company ever. Anyway, moving on. I got distracted with the beautiful Argos again. We've seen this thruster here before, or at least something very similar, something using a lot of the textures with this little interesting detail here. Well, I think with these metal sheets sort of going inwards, just a beautiful texture work overall. These are always a bit funny to me because they look like they're supposed to move, but they're all just a flat texture. I don't know, it works. On the inside here, we have some nice detail here with these things sticking out. And you can see the edges, once again, are all beveled or chamfered or however you want to say it. And then more of the same textures here. This is just the same textures from right here applied to there, and then right here applied to there. But the model itself works very well, and I suspect it might be this texture here applied to this stuff right there, but it works, again, pretty damn well. I think the only complaint we have in here is that there's a little tiny bit of geometry right here clipping through the thing, unfortunately. It seems like Aegis ship quality took a bit of a stumble when they came out with the Vanguard. After that, it never really held up, I don't think, to the Avenger. Anyway, let's keep on moving under here. Let's see. Oh, wow, I didn't fully appreciate this. And also, when I'm talking about ships holding up to each other, the Gladius, it's a Aegis ship, and it still is probably the best ship I've ever toured because it had just so much detail and everything just felt like it was thought out to no end. I love it. Anyway, we have a nice little drop down here where I thought this just was a flat surface right here, but you can see it drops back into here, creating all this nice negative space, which I love. There you go, just black in there, which is a little unfortunate. No, it does have a texture, it just showed up, so that is pretty awesome. And it even looks like it might be beveled a tiny bit at the top, but can't really tell. Lighting is letting it down some here as the flash is breaking the illusion. Actually, no, it's not beveled at the top. I can see it clearly. There's a gap. I think there's a little tiny gap right there at the very top of that. Anyway, along the bottom, though, you can see this is where I thought it just connected directly in, but luckily this leads itself into there on its own. And the cool thing about that is it's not just a rectangle like over here. It basically came up. You can see from the front area here where it drops down for your cockpit feetsies to go, comes up, carries around, and then instead of just going straight back, it has this nice little cut out right here where it comes down and then flattens out with some pretty smooth angles right there and there. Yeah, right there and there, which then lead back. It's got a smooth angle here, but I'm kind of alright with that. It seems like as time is going on, Aegis has become less, well, more smooth. Their first ship was the Avenger, which was very smooth. Pretty cool. Oh, and here's some asymmetry for us. It's just in the texture, but pretty cool to see this little slidey thing here, where it looks like this would slide, pop up, and slide over, and there would be something you could maintenance inside, as well as more texture detail here to give you more paneling, which is very, very nice. Poly count here is a little bit rough, it feels. I don't know why it feels that way. I think it's probably this angle right here when the light flashes. I can sort of feel that it's faceted right there. You can sort of tell that it's just one or two more edges would have made a whole world of difference right there, I think, because it doesn't feel quite like a smooth transition back. Unfortunate, but still pretty cool. The detail or the idea of it was nice. And actually, yep, this whole bit here that I was talking about, which came down the light, again, notice here it's so hard to see in the darkness, but this is actually its own separate piece. So not only does it merge into the wing there, but it merges up into the wing here, as well as just merging into this side panel, which is the same side panel that flows all the way along to the front there. It's a little bit hard when the ships are this scale to keep the detail interesting. Oh, here we go. This is what I was talking about earlier. They have like a nice little seam line here that's intentional, like it's been welded or something. That's nice. Okay, so they do have one of those. And we do get a triangle here because, of course, this piece here on the wall, this right here, curves inwards towards the bottom of the ship a little bit. Pretty interesting. Pretty interesting. Wish we could get a slightly more average lighting here, but let's keep on moving. As for the wing cut-in, we had the wing cut-in over here where the wing sort of gets itself cut. Well, once again, it happens right here for our other turret. Pretty cool. We could, of course, replace this gun with a gimbal and then stick a slightly smaller gun on top of that. No need for that, though, the way I like flying. As for details here, this is actually really nice. I love the fact that they have this little dark thing here, this this whole thing right here, because they have the main ship body here, so sort of gray, a little seam there. I'm not sure exactly how that's intentional. I'll have to wait until we get on top of the ship. But then they have this sort of separating the inner workings of the gun area from the rest of the ship, breaking it up and giving us some more detail, which is really quite nice. And you see it's mirrored on the other side with a nice little texture work of saying, hey, we got these little screw things you could turn to pop these in and out. And a little cut into the back of the ship here, where you can see that the dark areas I've been talking about, they actually loop back and come back out the other side, so they're all one big one, really. Pretty interesting. You can see there is an indentation right here from what looks to be actually a separate piece of geometry according to this little angle. Very interesting that. It's probably, yep, it's the whole landing gear assembly right here. Is its own sort of box, its own sort of drop down, where you can see it actually comes out at an angle and then goes back at a separate angle to sort of give it a little extra space. It's not needed, but it's just to sort of streamline the ship. So as the front, I could expect, okay, it's just a flat at the front, straight across pretty much, and then it comes out at an angle and then bends back in before having this sort of thruster at the back. Pretty nifty, and it's nice that it's not just flat at the front and back. In fact, I think it's a nice variance to have it flat at the front where the gun is coming out of it, and then angled at the back, sort of like this is all merging in gently to the center point. Pretty cool. I didn't even check the insides of those doors, but let's assume they were similar with this, with lots of texture work to give it some depth. And is there any geometry here? We have, yes, a little bit of geometry of this big, huge metal plate right here, sort of blumping up onto this, held in by these sort of 2D bolts. And same on top there, as well as actual joints that are modeled in. Which look a little bit funky, like maybe they didn't render out quite right, but overall, same sort of stuff we saw at the other side. In fact, I'd say it's probably the same exact models copied and moved around. As for the landing gear, once again, it looks to be the same thing we've already seen, but is it? Yeah, but we can get a slightly better look at it here, because in the past we could see the bottom, we can see the doors obscured some of the top, we can now see they have these awesome little metal plates here, with their little drop downs. Pretty awesome shape. I love all the little angular cut-ins right here. Love that so much. And you can see it's sort of held in by these things reaching down onto it. Now, unfortunately, we just got bumped away from the ship magically, but it does look like, they did account for that. Yet, stop bumping me away from the ship. That's very rude. They have these little cut-ins right here where this piece of metal is rectangular. As you can see, it's just a rectangular piece. It shoots across, but right here, they cut into it. So this is actually sticking out farther than this piece right here and even this piece right here, because they have a smooth sort of central point as if this thing could angle and rotate on that before it bumps into this main box right there. Pretty nifty. And I love the cables coming out of sort of a junction box, and the texture work does break it up just a little bit. Pretty nice. And then, of course, we have our piston, which is relatively simplistic, but still pretty nice to look at, unless you look right there where the poly count starts to let it down. It starts to look a bit wobbly with the lower poly counts, making the texture a bit unhappy. Overall, though, pretty good again. And they do actually have the drop in before it drops the rest of the way down, beveled edges everywhere, and then the actual piston itself. Once again, something you probably won't look at too much. I do like the fact that they have so much detail right there and right there on the landing gears. Carrying on around the ship a little bit more, we follow our wing down this way, and we do have some lovely break up here of the texture, and the fact that we have the lighter gray area here, and then the darker gray on the wing tip, and on its leading edge, I should say. Pretty damn nifty, and that carries all the way around to here, where then it sort of bulges out. Once again, trying to make that pulling feel towards the center, I would guess, which is pretty damn cool. And you actually see the harder edge right here leads all the way up before flattening out into this, which I actually really quite like. And then our lights here, rather unfortunately, do not really give me much of a sense of depth, partially because you can sort of see the poly counts on these edges right here. That's probably the main reason I don't get much of a feeling of depth. They feel very 2D. Yeah, particularly from this angle. Yeah, they feel very just 2D texture slapped onto a random spot on that. A little unfortunate, but even from this distance right here, they work pretty much perfectly. And then from here, you'd have no idea. Okie dokie, moving on, we have the large wing section here, which I personally wish I could just remove. Then again, they are adding atmospheric flight to Star Citizen, as in when you go into an atmosphere of a planet, your ship will change how it flies, so this ship would have a slight advantage in theory once it's in an atmosphere, so maybe I want to keep these wings. Anyway, they were added originally to add stability to the ship, as in once you're in space, they flip out. I can't really climb up onto this too easily. We'd have to go back to the front. Do we want to look at the wings from below? I think we can. We got enough detail to see that they actually have, well, a fair amount of detail in them. And the fact that this large thing reaches out like a hand, grasping onto the center point that goes through them, and then have a big gap here so this can rotate up and down very easily. And the texture work here, and I think maybe the modeling work right here around it keeps it broken up easily, so it all looks like it's a bunch of modular pieces. Pretty nifty. And if I go to the very end of it, we can sort of see what's really cool is that those hand things I was talking about actually reach into the wing itself, going down at this angle, sort of having a pinch here before coming back out. Very, very cool. Nice little bubble there. Anyway, let's see. Can we get a better angle at this from over here? Not really. The wing itself is a wing. It actually has a relatively proper wing shape in the fact that it kind of bulges and goes down. It doesn't necessarily bulge up and then back down this way slowly, but I guess they could adjust that with the back wing bit. Pretty nifty. And again, one of these sort of stuck in here, and the polycat letting it down a little bit. You can even see a little seam right there. You get this close, and this is really falling apart pretty bad right here. This is in pieces on the floor, crying to itself. Let's see, can we make this jump really quick? Oh, no, we couldn't. Another little wing right here. Once again, hardcore pixelization of a different layer on it, but you can see the actual textures of like the grime and stuff aren't pixelated really. A little pixelation right here, if you like look at these a little bit. They're more blurry than pixelated, I would say, which isn't too bad, and I think it's actually fine. It's just that overall pixelation you get over everything right now is letting it down pretty hard. Once we get to the back of the ship, now, actually, we skipped over this big thrustery thing here, didn't we? This big engine with its intake. We mentioned the intake. We didn't really mention on the bottom of it a few interesting shapes that feel a little bit lost in translation here, but still, I guess, work. We have this angular piece that shoots down and then shoots across the bottom and shoots back up. A little bit odd from the side. It's straight up and down. A bit different. Something I'm not particularly keen on. It does make a decent counter for the cylindrical and then having an angle that passes over it, which is pretty cool. So I guess in the end of the day, it's still pretty awesome. Especially the fact that you have this angle coming down and that shooting down out of it. It feels maybe like it's a bit forward for me personally, but overall not too rough. A nice little texture detail in there that you spin that thing. Below it, it then angles down and around, and you see they actually have a nice little cutout here of negative space right under this big whitish piece, which is pretty damn nifty. Yeah, that adds a lot of detail. A little hard to see, but yeah, the fact that this piece of metal here actually is a cut hole through it for this big piece that comes down at such an angle is pretty nifty. And I think, yeah, this comes down once again at an angle here similar to the smaller one before going through it. A little tiny pinch here where it looks like it goes from this thickness to a much smaller thickness right before it goes through, which makes me a little bit uneasy, but overall I guess it works. Oh wow, how did I not realize that this piece of metal here actually folds around to the bottom of that. Very cool. And we have an eye joint sort of thing connecting these two that actually has a bumped out section right here. Boop, bumps out angle before going the rest of the way down before angling back in after another sort of eye joint. That's really nice. I love the landing gears. Can we just have a ship made of pure landing gears? That'd be pretty nifty. Let's see, we talked about this. Along here we have a missile area, and I think my head will probably glitch through this in a second. You'll be able to see into it. When I was walking about earlier, very much so glitched into it, and you can see it very clearly. Either way, there we go. You can see a bunch of missiles and stuff in here. Not too much detail, but enough. Actually, quite a bit on the ceiling there. Almost looks like those could be big lights. Yeah, it's pretty nifty. Still needs some work. As you can see, those are hovering, but they're redoing a lot of their missile mounting systems, so that'll probably change a little bit. The doors themselves have some nice angles on them, and the fact that these hinges reach up and connect in before reaching back down, so you can see lots of moving parts and stuff in there that can pop open in space. Onto the back of the thruster, where we have the big old intake, we have little tiny light. Are you a light? It looks like a LED light or a million buttons or something from Alien Isolation that I just want to poke at. Very interesting. It's actually a surprising amount of polygons spent on this little thing. I think these are probably all just a texture, but it does actually bump out and have all this little detail here of nice beveled edges and everything, and these little guys right here as well, sort of holding the base on. Very curious. I'm almost amazed we can't pop that out and just fiddle with it. Let's go ahead and lay on the floor again. Plop. And now we can look at this nice vent here. We've seen things almost exactly like this before on other ships, but it's still a very nice piece. In fact, given the green color on it, I would argue it might even be taken directly off of the Gladius. Is it the Gladius I'm thinking, or the Gladiator? 1 second, please. It is indeed... Yep, the Gladius. Yeah, it's definitely Gladius I was thinking of, because I believe, yeah, right here, that's the same exact piece right there. Yep, that's definitely the same exact piece, same green, same everything. Looks even better on this ship. Like I said, this is my go-to ship for detail because of the way they had so many cut-ins and all this different detail that just flows so well. And the panel gaps seem also very small. Or I say the panel gaps, the panels themselves aren't big, huge things. They're all pretty small panels. That's my go-to, pretty much grade A, best of the best, Aegis Dynamics ship right there. Pretty sure it's an Aegis Dynamics ship. It would be a bit egg in my face if it wasn't, wouldn't it? I'm sure there's going to be an Aegis thing painted somewhere on it. There, right there, Aegis. Yes, I knew it was an Aegis ship. Dang it, that was really spooked me out. Also, I just went flying. Righty-ho, so that's the grade A Aegis ship. If you ever want to see an Aegis can really do, Gladius, right there. That's top-notch. This, it's a decent ship, but it falls apart quite a bit. Very similar to the Vanguard, but not as bad. Anyway, moving on, I think these are in a way similar, but these are their own little guys here with the details we were talking about. Just like this little guy right here, Nutty Butters. But anyway, as we carry on, we also have the beauty that is this little guy here, just sort of escaping this sort of horizontal thing with a nice rounded edges on either side, beveled in right there, so it's all like one piece of metal that then reaches back, this piece of metal covering it up nicely. I love this. I love this a lot, actually. This piece reaching over the whole thing, holding it in place. This is a sexy, sexy thing, this. I like it. Look at this. Inside, you can see the little pieces of metal that actually bump down and over, and actually maybe even inwards a little bit. The tongue that sort of sticks out, creating a nice contrast to the high silver here with the dark there. Very nice. I like this little guy, this little section a lot. Oh, and you can even see into there that it's got like little tiny fins in the middle as well. Very, very nice. I like that a whole bunch. Heading to the very back, we actually get, again, something that's similar to the Vanguard. The Vanguard at the back has these sort of big arms that reach out, and it's very, very ugly. These have them here, but it's nowhere near as ugly because these are clamped onto everything. For the Vanguard, they're sort of floating in midair, and it's just hideous compared to the original concept art. But these, they work because they're coming out of this big bulk of, well, nonsense here, but then they come out and remain attached pretty much the whole way out. It's a little bit of an odd choice. I would have expected them to be moved over a little tiny bit more, but they're fine where they are, I think, and they've actually gone ahead and put some texture work into making them work here, and the fact that you can watch this line go out, it bumps back, just to pretty much line up with them before blending into the rest of the ship pretty nicely here, and even in the fact that they have these this sort of beveled flat area here that sort of bumps out to house them all like a lip reaching around everything. Very, very nice. And even the angle here is interesting. Again, the poly count fails it miserably right here, but you can see it sort of loops around the edge here and then goes in at an angle. Very, very nice. And even this is pretty cool, the fact that the arm does indeed reach out and then drops out, almost like an open hand. A bit odd, but for the most part it works. It's a bit over smooth, I would say here, again, just feeling like somebody pushed it together real quick, but it does work pretty well. And then you got your shiny, shiny metal right here, before turning back into this darker metal here. And once again, we do get a slight issue on the bottom here, where you get the feeling there's this nice flat edge, and the flat edge just turns into this huge flat space right here at the bottom. I would have expected that they carried on down to have the same sort of width, the same sort of, width right here and right here, and then it would fold up and go in to meet the fins that are sticking in there, which are still pretty nice, but not the nicest in the world. What else? Ooh, now this is very nice. This I like a lot. Look at this. The bolts that reach out and sort of hold these two pieces together, clamping them together. This folds out in an angle, sort of comes out, smooth little angle there, and then reaches in before dropping straight back. And this little piece here reaching out and clamping into it. Very nice. I like that a lot. This little drop down here, it's almost like a creepy coffin almost, with its rounded edge and completely flat bottom. I actually kind of like it, oddly enough. Very interesting. It is beveled too, actually, the closer you get, so pretty nifty. And it is a nice counter to the sort of cut in just below it. The texture work on it all is very interesting, just keeping it busy and it's preventing it from being just bland. And then it disappears. All of this disappears into this back section here, which has these drop downs, which kind of seem pointless, but I think they're sort of a callback to other ships, so that's pretty nifty there. And then another vent here with actually separate metal pieces, like right here, dropping down this little tiny bit, clamping it on the top and the bottom before actually having the vent back there. Pretty nifty. Pretty nifty. Anyway, following all the way back to the end of it, you get these nice little thruster exits. The thrust ports, the engine exits, with all these lovely little teeth that come jetting out, and the nice glowing blue in there, which is actually a very, very thin glowing blue, almost as if they took this piece right here and placed it in there, which it might be. Pretty damn awesome. I love it. And of course, I adore those teeth and actually quite enjoy the angles they're all at, where they come out and then drop upwards. They come out and they drop downwards, and they counter each other pretty well, especially considering the top lip there right here is longer than this one here. It's pretty cool. And I also like the fact that it's a separate section with this nice big hefty seam there, and this bump out here with another wing shooting out of it, shooting forward. Yeah, and sort of merging into the other wings. You can see some movement joint stuff in there. What else do we have? I think that's about it. We talked little dinky wings with nice details. It's going to come out, down, whoop, and then back up and chop back in, sort of like a shark. Very nice. Big fins on the top here too, bit silly. Let's see if we can get on top of the thing now, eh? Got some more details to look at up there. There we go. Success. Ooh, and now you remember. Ah, Jesus. This ship is so much better on the top. Especially once you get a little bit farther away from it. You don't notice all the little faux-pas and things like that. It is such a beautiful thing. Suddenly on the top, the bump out here coming out at an angle, just like at the bottom, seems so much nicer, seems to make more sense. You got your little pop out right here that then leads into it, as if that's the reason why this thing pops out, because there's little things that come out of it and then have to disappear and dart backwards. The turret cutaway is so much nicer from the top. You have these nice little angles that you can see so clearly disappearing into it. Poly count is a bit sad there at that corner, but overall it's pretty nice. Coming back to here, you can see that the whole wing itself, that little leading edge, turns in the gray edge, then merges into an even larger wing flange that leads upwards, and this whole thing leads downwards at this nice angle. You just want to run your hand along this whole flat surface here, feeling the angle that it comes downwards at, towards the edge of the ship. The wing itself here, you can see the lines on it so much clearer from up here. The wing it also leads downwards. It's not just a horizontal wing that flips out horizontal. No, it's leading downwards, so when it flips out, it's still going to be pointing towards the ground even more. Oh my god, I love it. Nice little clamp detail there and everything. So very nice. I think next time we do an extremely close look, we might just have to do it in the PU or in a test world where we can actually use our flashlight and stuff. Once again, this thing here, the running edge, kind of interesting choice here, because it looks like if the flames go straight up, they might end up cooking its own wing. Bit odd choice. You'd almost expect them to have some sort of cutaway here, or actually not have a little odd wing thing there at all. But these wings are awesome, and the fact that they do shoot upwards from this point right here before leading up, and I think, if memory serves, yep, they then lead there, there, and then back in, just like those little tiny, I call them shark wings down below. If we were to run around a little bit more, I love the lines here so much on the ship from above. Maybe they were there on the bottom, I just couldn't see them. Shall we take one real quick look? This thruster feels like it's just coming straight back. This is just a big bulk of the ship. It's nice. Yeah, I don't know. Most of the ship's issues come into play when you get real close to lots of little stuff on the bottom and the texture stretching. Oh my god, I broke the window. Jesus Christ. Whoops. Anyway, I love this ship so much from the top of it. It's so pretty. You got these little tiny things here that were reaching into it. No, the bottom doesn't have this sort of interesting, smooth, high-tech detail. It's just a jumble down on the bottom in so many ways as compared to up here, where it just feels thought out and better designed. Well, there's lots of little design choices down below, but I don't know. Honestly, they're not little enough. They're not these little tiny clamps that are just reaching out from a random opening in the wing here that leads down into unfinished texture land, but it's still awesome. Oh, Jesus. I love this. The fact that this whole wing body, like we were saying, it flowed up to here, has all these little openings, and then has this sort of larger piece it transitions to that then goes ahead and starts shrinking back in and flows so beautifully all the way to the back with this little tiny wing bump out that we had pointed out before. It's just, the ship is so beautiful on top, and just not particularly impressing down below. Sort of comes across as a jumble. What else do we have? Well, let's just go to the back since we worked our way to the back and then hopped up on top. God, I love this. I love this because it's a bigger, darker metal piece right here with nice little cut ends, like you can pull this whole thing off and maintenance it. Very, very nice. We got all these super duper interesting vent detail things here, which I adore. God, I like them so much because you get it dark, it goes to high silver as it jets out over, and then it jets down and dumps back into the thing, and then it repeats, of course, on the next layer up. Got the center vents here, again, similar to the Gladius over there. Carries on, cylindrical, fun time that's actually bumping up. Oh my goodness, how did I miss that? This piece here is elevated and drops back down. It bumps up. Oh god, how do these all fit together? Oh my god, look at that. These little fins sort of reach out from there and hold on to it like little teeth or like an insect almost. And you got this little lip thing here, a guard sticking out from the layer below it. Oh my god, we're flying. That was, alright. Unexpected. Very, very cool stuff though. I love this. God, and would you look at this too? These things jump up, go in at an angle, like smoothed around into an angle, come back up and out. And then that little tooth thing, that little lip we called it actually has a cut in on the other side. It's not just flat on the back, it actually cuts in right here and then cuts back out. That's awesome. I love that. The bottom of the ship really had me in a bit of a dumps. Like, I was a bit disappointed in some of this stuff down here where it just... It's cool, it makes sense, the texture works nice, but things like that right there, where it starts looking real funky, really start to pull you down, and it still looks funky, and it looks alright, but it's still boring. It's still so boring, this thing just reaching out and holding onto this boring, smoothed around, like there's not actually separate pieces of metal. Particularly this right here. It's got a seam in it, but it doesn't feel like two separate pieces of metal, and it just all blobs together. So much blobbing, I hate that. But the top of this ship, Jesus, that's where it all starts feeling like it's built together. We'll get this thing in space, we'll check the bottom again, maybe it'll feel a lot different. Because we do have this awesome piece here that sort of flowed back. Maybe it's just these thrusters right here and a few of those little blobby bits that are letting it down, so... Either way, like I said, I'm still planning on keeping this ship because it is a good fighter and I do quite like it for the most part. Especially now that we got back on top of it, I remember why I bought it. Oh my god. Back on top, we're going to just go from here and follow the flow across these little triangular interesting details. They fail a bit at giving depth, but they still look cool. And it just bumps out at an angle right here before going up to the main thruster. Why don't we have that shape mirrored on the bottom side? Is this right here on the bottom side, if you watch this thruster, remember it goes straight back. It goes straight back and ends at that funny little thing there. They need something to mirror the same feeling of offset that this has here on the bottom. Even if they have the thruster there, have pipes coming out of it. Yeah, but you see it just ends here. Lower this down a little bit right here. Take this guy, drop it down, and you can see an angle coming back, but have some... Maybe raise this piece up a tiny bit and have some pipes that, yeah, take this, push it back to our right a little bit more, have the pipes come out, and then follow those same angles of going over to match that up. Because right now the top and bottom of this ship just, they feel like two separate ships almost. And then we're back up here again. Once again, that does let us down a little bit right here in the corner where it does feel like it's very squished and not really thought out. Pretty cool that they have the actual line there, though, on the base, this line here that sort of separates it out, which is very nice. Oh, and this nice little paneling here, and the different texture around the edges here that I didn't fully appreciate down below, but it's overall pretty nice. This leads back a little bit of a bulge up in the center here, but I think it's enough that it doesn't really bother me, because remember, you don't want things being blobby, and if you do things like that, sometimes you want more geometry than you think. But either way, I think it's perfect. Then we got a nice little cut in for another one of these thrusters we were going crazy about earlier. Carries on back to where you actually have a drop in this little triangular piece right here, where it drops down into almost like a vent thing where you could pull this all apart and there'd be a small little intake in there. So damn nifty. Or it'd be a little maintenance thing. This all then drops downwards to flatten out with the rest of the ship before, once again, this angle where it angles inwards, this angles inwards before heading back to the very back of the ship. And then again, we're back to all this crazy detail, which ends with the pipes going way to the middle. Because remember, we've been having these little things where they go They arch outwards, up, over, and then go inwards a little bit. And you can see right here, they really go downwards more than inwards. And then all the way over here, they come back out from down in the depths of the functional systems, reaching up and connecting into this little cut in right here, which is very, very nice. Looks like the textures are mirrored in there and maybe a bit silly pants, but so cool. And of course, all of this is covered by this sort of sheath right here, this thing that bumps up and covers it all up. And I love that too, the fact that it comes up, goes flat, and then flat across the whole top. And you see that here, it sort of blends out, where this then arches up a little bit. It's a simple thing, but it's sort of organic and without feeling blobby, where it just sort of reaches up here. Maybe one more edge there would have helped it, but overall pretty good. And then that sort of ends and turns into this edge right here. Gets a little risky over here where the wing starts growing out of it, and the geometry seems like the normal maps are not exactly wanting to play games and let me know what I'm looking at, but still very, very cool as this whole thing just flows together before reaching up, and a nice little cutout right here where it drops down with a nice bevel. Once again, this comes out of another thing. Got another, oh my god, I got so excited I fell. Got another opening right there where it drops in a little bit more. So cool. Another section here where you get the feeling this might be, this whole section almost looks like it could just pop free with the cockpit there. It's awesome. I love it. And now let's actually go ahead and do this. Pretty nifty. Not as good as the Gladius. You just cannot beat that Gladius. It's just insane. It's just insane. But yeah, you get in here, it's the same, I think, exact cockpit setup, the UI and everything is the Vanguard, but it's a cool little cockpit. The cockpit itself is awesome. All the little switches and buttons and flip-flops, it all holds up very, very well. Let's see if we get our mouse out. Yeah, we can. The little I-beam thing in here where it blends in so well. There's no massive texture seams or anything. This right here looks like it's actually a cut-in between this panel and this panel here, which actually comes over and has a nice little bevel before dropping. I love it. I just want to run my hands across it. The sort of armrest thing here, like if you're just cruising, you'd rest your arm on this sort of leathery thing. Got another one over there. Your throttle you're reaching out for. Clamps holding stuff together. And it's not just a big rectangular clamp with a bend in it. No, it starts out rectangular bends and then has a cut in, a bulge outwards, and then a circular clamp in, as well as a circular ending point. And as you can see, this cut in detail behind it. Got your vents next to you. It's a pretty damn cool cockpit. I love it. I love all the little switches and I just want to click them all. I don't think we'll ever get that, but it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Pretty good. Unfortunately, it looks like my head can currently go through the seat if I look straight up. Blah. But overall, it's awesome. I love it. Pretty good field of view, actually, too. If only this game had a higher FOVA than, what is it, 55 default? Something horribly low like that. Anyway, that is pretty much our extremely close look at this. I'm going to go to Port Olisar really, really quickly, and we'll go ahead and just take a 3D look at the thing as it floats about in space. Watch the clamp. That whole thing on the front moves up and down to sort of hold the cockpit door in place. Pretty damn cool. And here we are, out in the stars. So let's go ahead and pop that open. I don't think I re-equipped our weapon there. No, we didn't. Whoops. But anyway, we'll climb ourselves up and into here. It is a nice looking cockpit. I really love it. The top of the ship and the cockpit are fantastic. The bottom I have mixed feelings on. Let's go ahead and take ourselves off real quick. I don't think my throttle's installed, so we might have a little bit of silliness here. And there we go, in space. Ignore any cut there in footage. I forgot how to rotate my camera in third person. It's currently Z. Oh no, ship, don't move. I don't want you moving, I just want you rotating a bit. There we go. And let's go ahead and hold Z and we can rotate our camera about. God, it's such a beautiful ship, isn't it? I just adore it in space. It's so wonderful. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at the bottom of the ship. So let's rotate ourselves around right now. I think it's this button and this button, yes. There we go. And let's go ahead and move our view back around to the other side so we can actually see it. And I guess the bottom of the ship does work. Again, I still stand by what I said on that. Sort of feels like two separate ships where the top has all of that super sleek awesomeness and the bottom sort of it's much more standard, doesn't it? It looks so much more standard, like it's just a boxy little combat thing. Either of these ships I'd like on their own, just feels weird when they're stuck together. You do see some pretty cool stuff here that I didn't see before, like the fact that the cockpit is so far out, it reaches out so far, and then comes reaching inwards. Let's see, can I get our mouse to show up here? No, I can't, unfortunately. Dang. But it is pretty awesome when you see the cockpit bulges out, goes into that center section, and then you can see a lot more detail here, the lips reaching out and grappling around the little tiny thruster pieces shooting out of the back. It's pretty nice, actually. Yeah, I can see why they did that. It works out pretty well. It still feels a bit like a lot of very separate pieces that don't necessarily flow together, as well as other things. I'd expect more clamps and stuff like that, but overall, it's pretty nice. Just some faux-pas when you get so close to it. Then again, I guess it wouldn't be an extremely close look if we didn't get so close to it. Anyway, guys and gals, that is the Aegis Dynamics Sabre. It's a pretty damn pretty ship, eh? I'm a big fan of the thing, particularly on the top side. And the bottom side, as long as you don't get too close to it. Yeah. Still think the, what do you call that bloody thing? The Gladius is the all-time winner of beautiful, beautiful Aegis ships, but thing is pretty damn awesome. And you can see in chat there I was asking how the heck you go ahead and rotate the things about. Hey, anyway guys and gals, that's that for today. Thanks so much for watching this insanely long video. I hope you found it interesting. And if any devs happen to stop by, I just hope you don't hate me to the end of the world, and maybe take a little tiny bit of feedback about the little corners and things that get a bit funkity-dunkity. Oh, also, if you happen to have stumbled across this video and have decided that Sage is silly for doubting any of the details on this and decide you want to buy into the game, you can do so. There's a referral code down in the description down below, and if you use that, I get a little kickback and you get a few extra credits in-game. Remember, you can buy the cheapest ship as long as it comes with a game package, and you're not going to have to worry about any other silly-billy nonsense, because you can earn all these stupid expensive ships once the game comes out in full. So don't think you have to spend some stupid amount of money like a lot of us foolish people have. You don't gotta do that. Anyway, guys and gals, that'll be it for real this time. Thanks a bunch for watching, and I shall see you all next time. Ta-ta. Oh, I thought I was gonna make it. Well, I still lived. And somehow didn't lose a wing. Admit it, it's a sexy little ship.